Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's E-G-G-B-U-R-T, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
He still has a problem with that. I don't quite understand, but we'll just move on from there. Okay.
It doesn't matter. He sees the numbers, Brad. And you know what? He's lucky with all we have going on our life. And all we manage in the morning, he's lucky we're on the air this morning, so he can deal with it.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, first off, some national stuff. This stuff going on at Columbia University in New York, okay? Once again, I am a son of a World War II veteran. And we talked about this briefly on the air on Friday about Dwight Eisenhower and the interesting juxtaposition of Dwight Eisenhower, who before he became president of the United States, was the president of Columbia, the exact Columbia University where all this crap's going on right now. And near the end of World War II, and I don't want to, belabor this point, but near the end of World War II, when the Americans started getting into German territory and essentially liberating some of these concentration camps, Dwight Eisenhower was, first off, aghast at the horrors he found, and he wanted people to see this. First off, he marched the people of the town, the German people of the town, through the concentration camps to see what their, essentially, countrymen had been doing. And then, more importantly, he got the press and the GIs to actually tour the concentration camps to look at the pure evil that for the most part, the Germans had perpetrated on the Jews. And they weren't necessarily all Jewish people. The Germans hated gypsies, they hated some other ethnic categories, but majority of them were Jewish people. Okay, flash forward to today, where once again, if you would have told me that Hamas, when they attacked the Jewish people, mostly unarmed Jewish people in the settlements back on October 7th, if you would have told me that all of a sudden the sentiment would be for Hamas, I would be like, I don't think that's going to happen. And I have been, like most of the time, 100% wrong. I can't believe the anti-Jewish sentiment that has surfaced in the United States. And
yeah. And so what do you attribute it to, Brad?
I don't know. It doesn't. See, maybe what's the stupid saying? Those who fail to learn history are bound to repeat it. I mean, something like that.
Are doomed to repeat it.
Are doomed to repeat it. I mean, once again, and I think what's interesting about this is, let's do the Tony Colombo flip test. Let's take the Jewish people out of it. And let's put black people in there. I mean, don't you think that if this were like, the protests were against black people at Columbia, don't you think that, like, oh my God, you couldn't turn off the TV set? The TV networks would be going wall to wall. The country the protesters. I mean, look at the thing that happened with Trump. Where was that? Where they had the face off between the white supremacists and the one lady got hit by the
Charlottesville.
car. Charlottesville. Yeah. Okay, they still bring that up, and once again, like they say, one's too many. One lady was killed by some nutbag who drove his car through a parade or something like that. I can't remember the exact circumstances. And Trump essentially said there were good people on both sides, which, once again, when you think of that, you could say the exact same thing right now. You could say, look at the the anti-Semitic protests going on at the campus of Columbia, and look at the people who are, pro-Israeli. They're good people on both sides, okay? Once again, but there are bad people predominantly on the Columbia side. And I don't know if you saw the latest update on this, that the president of Columbia, who last week was testifying in front of Congress, has essentially made today a remote learning day. Sounds like grade school kind of stuff, but and they can't get the students off the class, off the quadrangle, whatever they're at. Over the weekend, one of the Fox reporters waded into the protest. Did you see this by any chance?
I didn't see this, no.
She was live on the air. She had a cameraman, and she's like on the outskirts of the protest area. And as she wades in, she tries to talk to people. First off, they're all covering their face. And they tell her they're not going to talk with her because of the fact that they have a media team. You know, the protesters have a media team, and if the reporters wanted to talk to them, they talk to their media team. And at one point, the one girl says, "Where are you from?" And she says, "I'm from Fox News." And then somebody jumps into the camera with their back to the camera to try to block the camera. The cameraman puts the camera up in the air to like shoot down. And the reporter keeps saying, "Well, there's other news crews in here. There's other people, you know," and she's pointing right now, you know, there's people over here who are, you know, being interviewed. And once again, guess where they were from?
Probably from the Clinton News Network, from CNN or MSNBC.
The sympathetic news networks were allowed in, but the Fox people.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And they had, you know what? Because the sympathetic news organizations, the sympathizers probably said, "Listen, we're just trying to tell your side of the story. We're with you on this. Let us in." And they probably had developed a good relationship with them.
I guess. But man, I tell you what, I lived through this back in the 70s. I'm an old guy. You know, it used to be to the point where as I was growing up, you know, and seeing all this garbage go on with the protests and stuff like that. Look, I do understand, and people can say, well, we have a right to protest. But I think there is, and I'm not really good at the English language, isn't the word peacefully, when you say peacefully protest, isn't that an adjective? Or what is it? Okay. So in other words,
it's an adverb technically, but
right.
Yeah.
You can protest, but not to the point where like the George Floyd protests, where we're going to protest and we're going to burn down the police station in Minneapolis. You know, I mean, that's...
Yeah. But remember, Brad, now what they would say, remember, there was mostly peaceful protests, with the exception of the looting and the destruction and the violence. It was mostly peaceful. And also, as protesters point out, and as protest leaders point out, it's only property damage, Brad. That's why companies have insurance. It's just property.
See, once again, when I hear those kind of things, I'm thinking to myself, they've never run a business before.
Never run a business. Or never owned anything that's been destroyed.
Right.
Did you see what happened and I don't mean to get us off topic, Brad, but did you see closer to home, at another university, Washington University, we have an annual carnival every year, a philanthropic carnival. Did you see what happened?
They shut it down because there was some riot broke on, right? Wasn't that what it was?
Yeah. So one person was arrested. And it wasn't named in the article. As usual, it was probably Asian females. Like, you can't have anything nice without a pack of roving Asian females destroying everything. But it was really sad for the WashU community, because 13 is a big deal every year. And every fraternity and sorority and campus organization spends months, Brad. And they spend tens of thousands of dollars to build facades and bring in rides for kids and things. And you know what? Surprisingly, Brad, the people that caused the trouble were not students.
Well, how did that happen? Let me think about that for a minute. Now, John,
I have no idea.
John knows really well, because John is, and it's sort of funny, you said this one time that people found out that when you went to Washington University, they go, "You went to Washington University? Like kids from North County not allowed?" You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's one of my the stigma. For example, Brad, here's an interesting fact. Two things you'll never see me wear. I'm never going to wear a sports jersey with another man's name on it. Like, other men should be wearing jerseys with my name on it, not the other way around. Number two, I don't wear any WashU gear, because in the early days of WashU, when I went there, I knew kids, Brad, that would say, you know, you're out at a bar or you're at a party, and some girl's like, "So what are you going to school?" And then a guy would be like, "I actually go to WashU." And hearing "actually WashU" turned me off to ever wearing any WashU stuff. Like, I never want to be the guy that's like, "Well, actually, I go to Washington. I went to Washington University." But yeah, Brad, I had a great education there, and you look at how woke the university has become, and I know they do some really, really good things in the community. But when you have some of the protests that go on, the anti-Boeing stuff, the stuff, the American flags being ripped out of the ground last year, it's hard to be a WashU sympathizer these days.
Well, now let's go back to the bar situation. when the woman came up to the dude and he goes, well, I went to Washington University, is that a turn off or a turn on for the woman?
Well, it doesn't matter if it's a turn off or a turn on. It's just something that I wouldn't do. And, we're all biased by our own things. If I went to, let's say, a really good college, let people find out that you went to a good college. And I mentioned too, Brad, I have real life friends that had no idea I went to WashU until they listened to our show and they heard you say, well, John went to WashU. Like, I don't know. I just think that in life, if there's something good about you, let people figure it out for themselves. Let them do their own research. And particularly if you're a man, don't read your resume to a woman. Women hate that stuff. Women love to peel back the onion of a man and get to know who he is on their own. Don't go bragging about your academic resume or how much money you make or all your career accomplishments. Nobody cares about that stuff.
John, I disagree with you on a couple different fronts. Back when I was a single guy, back in the day, a young guy, I used to go to bars and women used to come up to me and they'd go, where are you going to school at? I go to Flo Valley Community College, and I'm studying welding. And they go, oh, my God, really?
And they say, I've always wanted to be with a guy from Harvard on the highway.
Right. And they said, my frame in my car is cracked. Could you come over and weld it for me? Hey, babe, no problem. Would you like it MIG weld or just stick weld? Tell me which one.
That's right. And they knew from far away, Brad, when they saw that tank top, they thought, okay, he's either down in Festus or he goes to Fopo Coco. He goes to Harvard on the highway.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you a weird question. This is inside baseball kind of thing. Do you want me to run long or short in this segment for you to get back into the regular?
I am going to be where I usually am in 120 seconds, Brad. So you can make that call as you deem fit.
So let's run short on this segment though. Does that sound good to you then?
That sounds fantastic.
Okay,
Brad.
So it's 6.
Hey, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's 6:34 right now. We'll
7:34.
Yeah, I'm looking at the wrong clock. I have one clock that doesn't switch, and it's complicated because you have to plug it into a computer and run all sorts of programs to get it to change time. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll cut this segment a little bit short, and then John will be back. And nobody guessed where he was at, so nobody won the free car wash.
I know, Brad. I have like a free hour this afternoon, and I was hoping to do a little washing and waxing. You know what I mean?
I hear that. Okay, so a couple other things to talk about. Tease the thing I want to talk about. The pushback from the NPR people, and the whole thing was, we've been following this story for about a week and a half. The thing started the week before last with Yuri Berliner, or whatever his name is, essentially coming out with a article which essentially has confirmed everything. Well, not really confirmed. I mean, all you have to do is listen to the station and know it's pretty wacko left wing as far as NPR is concerned. And then he gets in trouble, and then he gets suspended, then he quits. Now the NPR people are coming out and saying, we don't know what he's talking about. And there's a classic quote from one of the NPR people, which I found absolutely positively fascinating. It would be sort of like saying, if someone says, there's a lot of crime in North City, and somebody who lives in North City saying, really? I don't know. I've never seen any crime before. I don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or extrapolating your own experience and assuming everybody else has the same thing. That's a common logical fallacy.
Right. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break, and by that time, so you want to hang up, and we'll reconnect, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll be right there.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?